Hey, that costs a lot of money.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I call this May 23rd, 2014 meeting of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting to order. My name is Jeff Griggs, and I'm chairman of the commission. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody with a cell phone to please turn it to mute or vibrate. If you have to take a call, please wait till you get in the lobby, and I appreciate that very much. At this time, I would like to ask Don King, Chief of I&E Division, to come to the podium and please lead us in our invocation, followed by the pledge. And everybody, would you stand?
Father in heaven, we come to you humbly this morning, thanking you that each of us in this room have an opportunity to participate in the stewardship of your creation, and we're so thankful for that. We ask a special blessing on these members of the commission, and we ask that you guide them and you grant them wisdom in the decisions that will be made today and on into the future. And again, we just thank you for the opportunities presented here today. And at the end of the proceedings, we ask that you grant us each safe passage back to our respective homes, and thank you in Jesus' name. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Don. Appreciate you doing that for me today. Ms. Barber, at this time, I'd like for you to call the roll, please.
Jim Bledsoe. Here. Harold Cannon. Here. Bill Cox.
Here.
Jeff Griggs.
Here.
Connie King.
Here.
Jeff McMillan.
Here.
Tom Rice.
Here.
Jim Ripley. James Stroud.
Here.
Trey Teague. Trey Teague. David Watson.
Here.
Jamie Woodson. Chad Baker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. You always do such a good job. I won't tell you what Commissioner McMillan calls you and remind you and get you stirred up on him.
Hey, she done said she had something to scold you about. She just couldn't remember what it was right now.
But what it is, I'm trying to get her off of me and onto him. So I'm sure all of you have had a chance to look over the minutes from the April 25th, 2014 commission meeting. If there's no corrections or changes, I would entertain a motion for approval. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? All right. The minutes for the April 25th, 2014 meeting passes. There will be a tablet that will be passed around the room today, and if you're here today, we'd like for you to sign that tablet. If you're here representing a group, please put your name of the group out beside it and your purpose for being here today. And at any point, if you want to address the commission today when the agenda comes up, please ask that you raise your hand to be recognized by the chairman of that committee. If you are recognized, come to the microphone, state your name, the group you're representing, if one, and the purpose for being here. If you speak, direct your questions and comments to the person that is chair. Do not at any time turn around and have discussion with anybody in the audience. It is okay to have discussion with other commissioners other than chair once the discussion is started. I believe at this time, Ed, do we have a presentation, or is there any announcements you'd like to make before that presentation?
No, sir, I don't have any announcements, but looking in the audience, I don't see anybody from She-Car Safari. I may be, if they are, they can certainly identify themselves. But I had talked with them on the phone. I don't see them here yet, so if you don't mind, with your permission, we'll just roll that to the time that they show up, and if they don't, I'll put that on the next agenda.
Okay, all right. If they come in a little late, we may just put them last. Okay, at this time, I would like to make a little bit of a change to the agenda, and I'd like to ask Steve Nifong if you would come to the podium, and Steve's with our boating and law enforcement. And I'd like to read this statement before he starts. This is a rulemaking hearing before the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission to consider amending Rule 1660-01-10, which deals with the rules governing business of taxidermy. My name is Jeff Griggs, and I will conduct the hearing. The order of procedures will go like this today. Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency staff will present information on the proposed rule amendment. Commission members will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Members of the audience will be permitted to comment and ask questions. Staff members and members of the audience wishing to speak should identify themselves before speaking. I reserve the right to limit comments and discussions, especially in cases of repetition. Mr. Nifong, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, we're going to speak today on the taxidermy rule change. And before I get into that, I want to let you know sort of how we got here. Several months ago, Director Carter asked our division to take over 3 programs, scientific permits, animal damage control, and taxidermy. All are going to require some rule changes. Taxidermy is the first one that we're going to bring to you today. And the person that's been asked to coordinate this is wildlife investigator Rusty Bowles. Rusty, if you'll stand up for me. So all the good things you see today are Rusty's work. Any of the problems are mine and the supervisor. But when I look more confused than normal day, you may see me ask Rusty to come up to the podium. The reason we did not ask him to present is Rusty has been in our special investigations unit for several years, working some undercover cases and whatever. We've morphed him out of that since he's going to be in uniform in a overt fashion now for us. But there's a couple of little loose ends that are still floating around out there, so we thought it best not to have him present today. So with that, I'll get on into the program. The history on this is this rule was promulgated all the way back in 1974. It has not been revised since that time. So that's 40 years that this rule has sat there. And due to that, changes in license structure and systems language, the current rule is not consistent with current TWA operations. For example, it now requires taxidermists to log down a big game stamp number. We have not had a big game stamp probably in 35 years. So we've been outdated for a while. So we're basically just doing some house cleaning on this regulation with this. During the process of this, we didn't want to do anything that would cause problems for our taxidermists across the state. So Rusty went out and got a sample of 11 taxidermists scattered across the state. In doing so, he tried to get some with a lot of experience, up to 30 years in the program, and some with a little bit less experience, 5 or 10, to get a cross-section of input from them. And these are some of the comments that he received from this sample group. None of the 11 that we sampled or worked with going into this had any issues with some of the proposed changes, and a lot of them saw some very positive things coming from it. Internally, we got a group of our regional law enforcement lieutenants to work with him. They're going to be the regional level coordination on these programs, and we'll be getting the emails when we add taxidermists to the program. So this has been a compilation of several months of work and a lot of input from a lot of people. One of the concerns that we had, because we were going to change the forms that have been required for 40 years, is that we did not want to implement a form that was very time consuming and problematic for the taxidermists to fill out. Game wardens are pretty notorious for not liking paperwork, so we understand trying to limit paperwork as much as we can. what Rusty did is he enlisted 12 individuals that had no taxidermy background or law enforcement background at all to fill out these forms to see if, just how long it was going to take. And we felt that was a good mix because they had no preconceived knowledge on how to do these things, and they could try it. As you'll see down at the bottom, this is what those results came out. The average time for completion of these forms is 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And the longest time that any of these individuals took was 3 minutes and 22 seconds to fill out the form. So we don't think the forms that we have coming up will be problematic at all for them. With that, I'll get into the rule change. I don't think I'm going to read all of the red or whatever. Basically, as we scroll down through here, these are minor housekeeping type of things, changing nomenclature from very, very outdated terminology to the terminology we're currently using today with our systems. The only addition on this first slide is we've added an H down there where the taxidermist is asked to record the service fee for it. The reason for this is that the regulation for 40 years has stated that taxidermists could sell any unclaimed trophies for the amount of their service fee, but there was nothing in any of the forms documenting what the service fee is, and we have probably run into some situations that were maybe a little concerning, but so they're going to be asked to put that on the form this time. We've come up with names on the forms, and I'll show you in a minute. One is called a taxidermy accountability form. It also could be classified as an intake form. That's what they fill out. That was the 2 minutes and 27 second form that they will fill out when they get the trophy in. And then there is also a log sheet where they will create a control number that goes with that record and with the animals as they go through the business. The log form basically makes it easy if an officer needs to go in and look for a particular person for whatever law enforcement reason, rather than having to go through several hundred records there, they can hopefully scan the log and then go directly to the record that they are interested in. We've added number 3. Basically, the way it will work is when they get the thing in, they'll fill out the intake or the accountability form, and they can actually have the hunter or the person bringing the trophy in fill out portions of it. There's one shaded portion that they're required to fill out, and then it is a 2-part form on what we say is NCR paper, the carbonless paper, and the back copy will serve as receipt for the customer. There's even a place at the bottom of the form for notes where they can delineate what type of mount it is or whatever for this that they want to do. So basically, those are the minor rule changes. The only thing really is being changed today in this rule is adding the service fee, and we're asking the taxidermist to maintain these records for 3 years rather than 1. After we came up with this, and in recent conversations, we thought it good to send the information out of this rulemaking hearing today to the taxidermist. So we sent letters out to all 234 that are currently licensed with a link to the forms and link to the proposed rule, and tell them when the rulemaking hearing was today, so if they wanted to provide input, they could. We have received comments, I think it's up to 13 now on it, and out of the 13 comments that Rusty or myself, we both were listed as contact persons, 10 have been very positive. 3 had concerns with the proposed changes basically until we discussed them and they had a better understanding on what the changes were. Here is the way our system is designed to work. When a taxidermist buys their first license or renews their license, TWA will mail a copy of the license along with the records binder. And the records binder is going to look like this. And in the binder, they're going to receive an instruction sheet on how to fill the forms out. They'll probably need that the first year or so. I don't think it'll take very long to get it down. And then there will be the log forms for log the trophies in. And then there'll be 2 pads of accountability forms in there. There will also be a number and contact person on there. When they start running short on forms, their instructions will ask them to request additional forms when they start on their second pad. And then in the back of it, there'll be a reminder of when the taxidermy license expires and a application for their next year's license. So this will be mailed to their address with their license when they do their licensing up. And before we get into the questions, I want to make a point that our agency views taxidermists as very much as friends of the agency because, you know, they help, I won't say memorialize, but the trophies on the wall are very important to a lot of people. I can think of nothing more important probably than a kid's first deer mount that he gets on the wall. That's the way we keep people in the program and recruit and whatever. So we have done this to try to clean things up, but try to make it as user-friendly as we can. If this rule is passed today, we found out in recent conversations with some of the national and state leaders that there is a Tennessee taxidermist convention being held next week at Henry Horton State Park. And if we do pass this rule today, our plans are to have Investigator Bowles down there to speak with them, answer any questions down there next weekend. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Okay. Commissioner McMillan?
Thank you, Officer Nifong. I know you and I've had some discussion about this based on a taxidermist back home that had questions for me. And I'm reading the rule here, and the one thing that you and I talked about is that the TWRA identification number or the license number, and it doesn't say or.
Okay. Thank you for calling that to my attention. When we had our discussion yesterday, we thought we were going to need to amend that on the floor today. I met with our legal assistant that handles the rules, and she said it was not a material change. So the final rule today actually is in the form that you want it to be in. Will not require amendment. It differs from what is in your packet. And let me see
And
if
I want to explain to the commission why I'm asking that is that the particular taxidermist was concerned that a lot of times the person that actually took the animal doesn't bring it in for the taxidermy, and they may have the license number, but they may not have the confirmation number where they check the big game animal in. And if you ask for both, the taxidermist is then going to have to run that person down, and it just felt like it was going to be an imposition and slow down his business. So, this fellow probably takes in 500 heads a year for deer, and it's just, if you do it either or, that was the reason.
Okay. If I may read that particular statement, it's in F now, and here's the way it reads. The TWA identification number or the confirmation number from a completed check-in for all big game
Okay,
licensed
it just doesn't say it on.
animals taken, and that is on the final form.
Okay,
You all
and
voted on.
and will it say it on will it say it on this form?
We'll probably state it in the instructions. There's 2 places for those numbers, and in the instruction forms that we send out, we will tell the taxidermist that either or is applicable.
Okay,
for it.
is there any way on this accountability form that somewhere along the bottom that we could have like a claim check thing that they could then just cut off, because they're going to have to do an additional claim check when they put their animal up there with horns and stuff. They're going to have an additional accountability to tear off and give to the person, because would they want to have that person come back and say, this is my amount? They've got to have something in that regard.
What they will have is the back sheet of that, which is yellow in nature. I'll pass this.
Right, I understand, I have a copy of it
And-
here as the receipt, but
That'll
I'm
be the
saying
receipt,
as
and
far
we'll
as
have-
attaching something to the animal itself, when they're all hanging on the wall and they're letting the antlers dry, what do you suggest they do there?
Well, it will work because when they log the animal in, there will be a control number that will match to that animal. And
So
the
they just
control
need a little
number-
tag with string and just write the control number down?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
all right,
it'll be on, the control number will be on the,
okay. And
mount.
are these forms something that we supply the taxidermists, or they
yes.
gonna have to purchase them?
No, all this
Okay.
is coming from us.
Okay, I'm just trying to answer the questions I know he's gonna ask me, so.
Understood.
I certainly appreciate it.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Nifong from the commission? If not, you have one?
Not so much a question, just a comment. And that is, long-term, Steve, my hope is just as we have had the ability to check in animals can take place electronically, that will afford our taxidermist that opportunity to record this information electronically.
That was actually our wishes going into this. Our dream was to be able, maybe where they could do this by computer, online and whatever, but when Rusty did his survey, he found out that there are a number of taxidermists out there that do not have computer access at this point. So as we go into the future, hopefully we'll be able to get there where there is some discussion right now where we may be able to put these forms linked to our website or whatever, where they could actually fill them in by computer, make a copy for the receipt or whatever. So we're looking into that right now.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Watson?
Commissioner Griggs, I recommend passage of proposed Rule 1660-1-10, amendment to rules and regulations governing business of taxidermy.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second. All right, at this time, I will ask, is there any more discussion from commission? And I'll also give the audience, if there's anyone in the audience that has any discussion about this.
Just a point of clarification, we are voting on this as 1F has been proposed by Steve Nifong, to include the or language that Commissioner McMillan referenced earlier.
That would be correct. Any more discussion? All right, it's been properly motioned and seconded, and with no other further discussion, we will take a roll call vote. Ms. Barber?
Jim Bledsoe. Harold Cannon. Bill Cox. Jeff Griggs.
Aye.
Connie King.
Aye.
Jeff McMillan. Tom Rice.
Aye.
Jim Ripley. James Stroud.
Aye.
Trey Teague.
Aye.
David Watson.
Aye.
Jamie Woodson. Chad Baker.
Aye.
Rule passes.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Rule 1660-1-10, amendment to rules and regulations governing business of taxidermy passes. And that concludes this rulemaking hearing. And Chairman Woodson, if you don't mind, I would like to start your committee right here, if you don't mind. All right. And at this time, I would ask Richard Kirk if you would make your way to the podium, sir.